For coming. You're all here to talk about the Naughton Fellowship opportunity. Hopefully you're not here to talk about something to do with chemical engineering, or maybe you are. We can go next door if you want to. But I'm Brian. I direct the program. I've got a partner in crime back there whose name is also Brian, who helps me out here. And Joanne will be joining us in a little bit, so who helps help us do things. There's a lot to the Naughton program. Let me get a show of hands here. How many people are interested in the fellowships that you can apply to that get a master's degree? Sorry, for the master's degree fellowship that would occur after you graduate. I mean, how many people here are interested in that program? Okay, and how many people are here interested more in the REU program? All right, so we got about half and half. Anybody else? Is there anyone else interested in something else? There's other components to it. We can talk a little bit about both of these. The major thing I'm here to talk about is aspects of the master's program. The REU program is a little bit easier to handle, but we can do both of those. Before I do that, I'll go over just a little bit about what the Naughton Fellowship program is, why it was started, when it was started, what its aims are, and ultimately what we hope to achieve at level of individual students, level of the program, level of the institutions, etc. So the Naughton program, again, it involves multiple things you can see up here. There's undergraduate programs, there's a master's program. There used to be a PhD program that's been rolled into a program to support faculty. It was started by a gift from the Naughton family. They might have recognized a golf course and some other things on campus that they've also supported very generously. So the Naughtons wanted to help support educational programs in STEM, science and engineering and mathematics, that would help link Notre Dame with Irish universities and Ireland in general. So the thought was to support students to go from Notre Dame to various Irish universities at different levels, REU programs, master's students, PhD students, as well as to support Irish students to come to Notre Dame. Might have run into various Irish students supported by the Naughton program throughout your time here. There's an esteem program. I don't. Do we have any esteem people here? Anyone who's run into any esteem folks? That's a master's program. Again, Irish students come here to work on various things related to science and engineering. But essentially, it was to again link Irish universities, Ireland, with Notre Dame through science and engineering. The Naughton family has a very rich history in engineering and science, and views the idea of supporting science and engineering as a way to help support Ireland and help grow Ireland and Irish engineering, as well as to just long supporters of Notre Dame in general. So the goal then is to, beyond just supporting students, to have students go to Ireland or come from Ireland, be ambassadors for their various universities, for their countries. So students can come from Notre Dame and be ambassadors to Notre Dame over there, but then come back and bring a little bit of Ireland home with them. Essentially some cultural aspects that I think would be generally well received as we go along. So that's kind of the general idea. Over the years, there's been various aspects of the Naughton Fellowship program. Some things have come, some things have gone. When we started this, again, we had a PhD program, and that's been changed a little bit now. Various Irish universities started, and some have kind of come on lately, depending upon what the programs they have. And so there's a collection of Irish universities and a collection of programs. And as new programs are started at various universities, both here and in Ireland, they get added to the list, and some of them might get off the list if they're not particularly STEM focused anymore, or if they're shut down. So it's kind of a fluid program. The REU program is basically just kind of what it sounds like. You can apply to go do research in Ireland. We have Irish students that come here as well, but we don't have any in the room here. So the thought is that you can identify a university, a program to apply to, or that you're interested in, apply for an REU fellowship, and if you're selected, you get to go over to Ireland and do what you would do in some kind of science and engineering program. There's the application page for the REU program. I'll call it up. I got a couple questions from folks who couldn't be here who wanted to learn a little bit more about that. This page here on the undergraduate side where it talks about REU for students to go from Notre Dame. There's instructions on how to apply. It's all pretty straightforward. But there are some key things here that you want to identify and that you want to look at and really kind of hit. You're asked to write a personal statement, and that personal statement really should address what your interest in STEM is, what you want to do. If you write that you're interested in science, some kind of science and engineering, and your future plans are that you want to go do something on science and engineering, you might not be viewed as competitive. Then if you want to use this experience to go continue on and do something great in science or engineering. So you want to kind of consider what the goals of the program are, and that would come under your future plans there. Why you're interested. You want to kind of sell your application to hit the various criteria that I mentioned, and that kind of comes down in here. Why you're interested, how do you want to be an ambassador, both for Notre Dame as you go over to Ireland, and how you want to be an ambassador for the country, the United States, going to Ireland, as well as coming back. Think about those cultural sorts of things. Let me just pause there. What questions do you have? I know because we've got half of you interested in the REU. I think that's a simpler program to talk about, but I'm sure there's some folks here who question. Yes?
So to apply, we have to kind of almost apply to the university and then fill out all those boxes in the way that we would, as described above.
You apply for the REU program through this application. You don't apply to that university. That is correct. For the master's program, it's a little bit different. I'll get to that in a second. But yes, you apply through this website. It's.
Yep, that's the link, and then another one at the bottom.
Yep. Okay. So yeah, and really to be selected for an REU program, you want to try to emphasize the kind of things I mentioned. What are your interests in STEM, both near term, long term? Of course, it's a competitive application, so we're going to look at GPA, we're going to look at a letter of recommendation, we're going to look at all those other sort of things that help you stand out academically. But again, there's these other sort of things that matter. What your short, near term, long term interests in STEM are, and then this aspect about being an ambassador, which is more open ended. You can imagine a lot of ways that you might write that. I would guess that at the REU level, this is not something you want to really obsess about, but certainly addressing it. If you were to spend all of your time talking about how you really want to go to Ireland, this is so important to you, and you want to do some science, that's not as helpful as the inverse, where you talk about how important science is and what then add on some ambassadorial aspects. I think that highlighting some unique things about the program you want to go to is helpful. If anything that you can do to personalize your application that's to really kind of say, this is what I'm interested in, this is what I want to do, and this is why I want to do it. Yep.
How many people usually apply to the program, and how many are selected?
For the REU program. Brian, do you know those numbers offhand?
I don't know the number of applications in a year. They, in the past, were handled by someone else. But we have a total of 8 spots to send students over to Ireland each summer.
My recollection is that the number is in the 30 to 40 applications, and so you do the math from there. Any other REU questions? And if you have them as we go along, if something else comes up, don't hesitate to interrupt and just throw them at me. Let me pivot a little bit to talk about the master's program, because that's at least half of you here are interested in the master's program. This is a little bit different. Many of the same kind of considerations apply. Certainly the reason we have the program is to further these links. Unlike the REU, where you go over, you spend part of the summer, you come back, this is a full-fledged master's program that you earn at an Irish university. So you apply to the program, you apply for a Naughton Fellowship, you will have already identified what university you want to apply to in Ireland, what program you want to apply to. You apply separately to that program. You don't have to be admitted yet. There's a little bit of a disconnect in time. That is, you may not be able to apply for your master's program, or you may not even really kind of begun thinking about it before the deadline for the master's for the Naughton Master's Fellowship is. So, you will have to apply separately to that master's program. But when you do the application here at Notre Dame, you really want to have identified that. Let's say you want to go do neuroscience at Trinity College or something. You will not have to have been applied already and been accepted yet. You just have to list that as your intent. But that's again because of the timing. So what you'll want to do is identify what program you want to study. There's a whole application, and the same kind of things apply. Why do you want to do it? What is it that appeals to you? What are your future plans? How are you best aligned to that? Of course, it's competitive again we look at GPAs and letters of recommendation and other sort of things, but it's this personal statement where you really get to sell yourself and say, this is what I want to do, this is why I want to do it, this is why I want to be an ambassador for Notre Dame, this is why I want to be ambassador for the States, and if I come back, you may not want to come back. Some people want to stay in Europe and do various things, and that's completely fine. You want to kind of give people an indication that you're interested in being an ambassador and helping to link the two countries somehow. There's not a real hard fixed expectation that you'll do that. Everyone's plans change. Everyone kind of moves along as they go through life. And certainly we have people start their masters planning to do one thing, and then a year later other things change. But we understand that. But it's kind of what the intent is. What are you thinking about? And so there's an opportunity in the master's application to really kind of spell that out. If you are awarded a master's, congratulations, you get to go get a free master's, and you get to spend a year in Ireland. You're not a Notre Dame student anymore. You're a student of whatever university. Say it's Trinity. You go there, you become a student at Trinity College Dublin, and you go through their program. Depending upon which site you're at or where you're at in Ireland, you might obviously. Anyone done study abroad in Dublin yet? So if there's the O'Connell House there. So if you are at Trinity College, you'll get to hang out with some of your other Notre Dame pals maybe, but you will officially be an alum. You won't be a Notre Dame student anymore, but you get paid. Notre Dame gives you, again via the generosity of the Nauchtons, gives you a check for spending money and room and board, and they pay the master's fees, and you get that master's degree. It's competitive again. We look at all the various things we looked at before, GPA and letters, and the statement is critical in terms of selling us on what your interests are in STEM. Probably not going to be very competitive if you say you want to go and get a master's degree. I picked neuroscience, but it could be chemical engineering, it could be some kind of discrete math, whatever. If you say you want to do that as a way to build up your acting skills, that's not going to fly. That's not going to work. You want to make a convincing story about how you're going to use this experience in order to continue in STEM. It could be as a stepping stone to go to graduate school. It helps if you have some thoughts about how you might use the international experience to go to graduate school. Say you want to maybe stick around and get a PhD in Ireland or England or Germany or something, and essentially take advantage of the internationalization that goes on with the master's degree. It helps if you thinking about, well, I really want to use this experience to go off and work on infrastructure in developing parts of the world, that's not someplace back home. So again, it's this international building bridges part of the program that we're looking for when we select applicants. But the kind of nuts and bolts, you apply separately here at Notre Dame. You apply to the program that you're interested in. If you get selected, we pay you, and you get a free master's degree, and you get to live in Ireland for a year or year-ish, depending upon the program. That's the high level. I'm sure there are questions. Yes?
How many master's programs are awarded?
Depends on the year, depends upon how much money. This is an endowment, so if we spend a whole lot of money the year before, we might have less money that year. But on average, I think it's about 4. Brian, that's about right? Sometimes if it's really tough, if we're having a hard choice and we can't pick, you can't pick between number 4 and number 5, we'll go to Brian, who manages the money, and say, find us some money, we really want to send 5. Again, it depends on the pool, but those are the numbers we're talking about. The applications, number of applications for the master's program have been small. That's one reason we're doing this information session, to try to drum up some interest and get more applications, spread the word around.
Brian sent me the numbers, but I think last year we had 7 applicants. Is that about right? think that's the smallest, and then it's gone up to maybe 17.
So that's kind of the competition that we're talking about. Having said that, the numbers historically have been small, but they have been outstanding applicants. We have not, we're not selecting people with, we're not having to, dig down to the bottom of the barrel, so to speak. These are competitive applications. We're actually been very happy. We want to increase the numbers, but it's still competitive, and it is, we've been pretty pleased with the students who have been selected. And by and large, it varies. Some students have come back to the States to go on to graduate school. Some have stayed in Europe. Some have stayed in Ireland. What people wind up doing is varied, but the idea is that they will use this experience to again, further links between the countries, and hope, maybe some of them will wind up staying in Europe. Maybe some of them will come here and, bring a little bit of Ireland home with them. Other questions? What else can I tell you? Yes?
This is back to the REU,
Mhm.
but what will the timeline look like for when will we be in Ireland? Is it like a 10-week program, you said?
I think it depends upon which REU site,
Okay.
but typically that is about the length of it.
And then if we had something that we had to travel back to the States for, like conference or something, would we be able to talk with the person?
Yes, usually, I mean, those kind of things inevitably come up, and that is something you work out. You work out as you're making your plans. It's not going to go over well if you get selected for an REU program for 10 weeks and you come back here for 6.
Right.
But if something comes up and you have some plan, best friend's wedding, something along those lines, which obviously people make accommodations for those. But it's not going to be a third of the program. That's not going to fly well. One of the things that often comes up is to what extent is going on in medical school, STEM, continuing on in STEM. Historically, we have not looked at plans to go on to med school as really remaining in STEM as envisioned by the Naughton family. Oftentimes students, better way to put this is we're not looking to support a gap year. A lot of times students who are interested in going to med school, they do a gap year in order to get some research done, do some other sort of things, and then go on to med school. We're not looking for that. And if it looks like in your application, again, there's no hard and fast rules, and there certainly have been people funded who are planning to go on to med school. But if it looks like that this is a gap year plan, that's not going to be as competitive. Now, if how much you work this, let's say that you wrote an application that said, I'll use neuroscience again, that said, well, you really always wanted to go to med school, but you took a neuroscience class, you did a little bit of stuff on that, you were super excited about it, now you're thinking about doing an MD, PhD in neuroscience, and you want to go get some more experience doing research so you can be competitive for MD, PhD programs and go on and be a physician scientist as a physician neuroscientist. That might fly. So it's not, there aren't any hard and fast rules, but the traditional gap year, as it's come to be called, as you go on, do something else before you go to med school, is not going to be a competitive application on its own. Other than that, any kind of science and engineering, medicine works. On the web page here, there's a list of the participating Irish universities and the various programs that are there. You can scroll here on your own. It's up here somewhere. Here they are at the top. So Dublin City, National University of Ireland, Galway, Trinity College, Cork, you see Dublin. You click on those and you kind of have to go through them. We're pretty open about communicating. If you find a master's program that you're interested in, you can just email Naughton. You can email me separately, and we can get back with you. It's kind of on you to find those programs that are STEM related. We have a list that we know already are approved. Joanne, we should probably have that on here somewhere.
Yeah, it's actually just that sub-tab, see on the left, programs.
Oh, there it is, sorry.
Yeah.
Thanks, Joanne.
But yeah, there's definitely other ones out there.
Things come up, things get added, and we have a long discussion. And so one of the things that we have discussed recently is to what extent are various biomedical programs, things that are more medical, things related to prosthetic design, those sort of things that might blend engineering and science with medicine. Historically, again, we've looked at the idea of just doing sort of medical stuff is not really, even though it is STEM, it's not what we want to support. There are some of these other programs that actually probably are more STEM. So, for example, this kind of bioengineering might be something that we would consider. So if you don't find it here on this list, and there is something that you see at Cork or Dublin, Trinity, then we can talk about it. But I would, certainly it's a safe bet that these programs are ones that we've already considered and are good for that. Again, you would have to apply separately to the program and get admitted. I don't think we've ever had someone get a Naughton, actually Joanne's shaking her head, we have never had someone get a Naughton Fellowship, be awarded one, and then not be admitted by this master's program. So, and that's because of the competitive nature. The people who are awarded the fellowships are usually quite competitive to begin with. So, you had a question on that?
So for the timeline, is it typically that you would apply for the Naughton Fellowship, because that closes in February?
Yes.
Right? And then you would apply for
Yes.
whatever the master's
Yep, so you do it separately, and they're separated by weeks to months. And one of the reasons that we're trying to do this, we have an earlier timeline, is as you're graduating, earlier deadline. As you're graduating, you're beginning to think about what you're doing. If the deadline to apply for a Naughton Fellowship is, let's just say it was April, and you've already made a whole bunch of other plans, you might be considering a lot of other sort of things. What we really want you to do is consider this early, and if you're awarded one of these, that's going to be your plan. Again, we understand, and it often happens that someone who is awarded one, they find out they're going to do something else, and it certainly happens with some frequency. But ideally, by considering this deadline early, you get one, you know what you're going to do for the next year, and hopefully you stick to it. You can't, we won't find you if you don't, but that's kind of the idea. Yes.
For the REU, what's the timeline with finding out whether or not we've been accepted?
Brian, do we know that?
So the goal is to do it just a matter of weeks after that application deadline. We've structured that timeline so that we are collecting this interest before most of the labs are just doing it generally on their own. So we want to have you be the first in line, so we can say to a prospective mentor, here's a student, already has funding, would you be willing to host this student for the summer, before they even look at anyone else.
Okay, awesome, thank you.
Yep.
Do people for the RU program sometimes get are they assigned a different mentor at times, or should you do you select exactly one, or do you just describe what you want to do?
Depends upon the program, and it really does vary. And that is the nature of RU programs in general. Some of them are wide open, and you get to pick whoever it is, and then you find that person to begin with, and then you're part of the RU. Other times you're part of the RU, and then you get assigned someone. In almost all cases, there's some back and forth, and so no one is surprised and winds up doing something they don't want to do. But the nature of the programs are different. Sometimes you identify that person ahead of time. Sometimes you identify the RU program first, and then get in, and then you find somebody. It really does vary. What else can I tell you? Yep.
Do you guys have do you have any are you looking for people who haven't studied abroad before, or do you care?
I wouldn't. It's certain. No, I don't think that factors into it. I mean, you can look at that through multiple lenses, and I think it all comes out a wash. Certainly, if that's a part of your story, if you've never been abroad, if you've never traveled, and this is part of your idea of being an ambassador to finally get some of that and bring it back home, or that could be a compelling part. You don't want to make that case at the expense of the other parts, but we have certainly had people do that. Everyone's story and reasons they want to do this is a little bit different. You can go too far with this, though. We had an applicant several years ago who, at the end of the day, this person's family was all around Ireland, and they wanted to go home. They wanted to be home with friends and family, and they were going to do a master's at the same time. That is not a compelling reason. It's very nice, but it's not a compelling reason to be awarded a fellowship.
And I would say that, let's say no one's been, done study abroad in Dublin, but let's say you do, and you write, oh, I had such a great time the first time, I really want to go back. That's not a compelling story either. And I think you understand hopefully I think you understand what I mean about making a compelling story about why you want to do that, why you would like to be overseas, why you would like to have some international experience in Ireland. Saying you want to hang out at the Temple Bar again is it's not going to work. But at the same time, visiting friends and family is not the only reason for someone to go back and do that.
And we have had 2 instances where Naughton Fellows in the REU program went on to become Naughton Fellows in the Master's program. So it happens that you go and you have such a great experience and you love it and you want to go back and you articulate that in a way that the committee says, go for it.
And on that note, it could be, one of the things we look at is what are you going to get done? And now some of the master's programs are pretty straightforward, and you do some courses, you do a little bit of stuff in the lab, and you get your master's degree. But some of them are quite tailored, where you go in and you do individual research and you get some amazing stuff done. And it might be the case that you actually you did an REU, you got your feet wet in a project, and now you're going to go back and you want to finish it, and you're going to get 3 publications and solve some major problem. That's a nice, compelling story too. Again, the extent to which you get to do that depends upon the various master's programs. Some of them, again, are very structured courses. Do some stuff in a lab, but not a whole bunch. Others are more open-ended, where you're essentially a graduate student solving a problem. And to the extent that you can do amazing science or engineering, that can make a nice, compelling application too. Again, it's not necessarily what we're looking for. You don't have to have that, and many of the programs don't even offer that. Yeah. Hi there. Yes.
So for the REU application, would you want us to select certain PIs and projects that we're interested in from the projects that are listed under those links?
That
Or
helps.
is
It helps.
Okay.
It helps us ensure that you thought about it, you have a good sense, and that's a way to make yourself stand out.
Okay.
And just so everyone knows, I don't know if Brian mentioned this already, but we have the UCB projects for the REU program, and I'll get those on the website today. Stay tuned.
Thank you.
One of the things that, in true Notre Dame fashion, one of the things that is happening is the program is in its 10th year now. Actually, it's 11th year, right, Joanne? We're a year behind. We're having a 10th year anniversary shindig, but it's in year 11. There's quite a few alumni now, and many of them are interested in continuing on and not continuing on with their programs, but continuing on with the Nauchtons and doing various Naughton things. And so there's an alumni tab up there, and you can go there. There's a little Naughton alumni organization, and then they have a tailgate. They come back and they have a dinner. The Naughton family is hugely supportive of these students, both when they're in Ireland as well as if they're ever back. And the Naughton family is oftentimes here at Notre Dame, and they support the tailgate. They support the party. So it is, again, in true Notre Dame fashion, it's a great community to be part of. There's an alumni board now, and they have a president, and they're trying to do various sorts of things to support it. So it is a good group to be part of. And when you're over there, the Nauchtons open up their house, and they have a party, and you have people over, various fun things. Lots of pictures. You see a lot of smiling faces. Anything else I can tell you? You came in late.
Yes, sorry.
What questions do you have? There's nothing wrong with that.
I can come up after.
That's fine. I'm sure other people want to have a few. And if you've heard enough, please feel free to leave. But were you interested in the REU program or the master's program?
REU.
Okay. So we talked a little bit about the nature of the application and the way to sell yourself and the way to hit various buttons. It's a competitive application, and on the undergraduate tab there are some points that are listed there that have to do with being a cultural ambassador, why you're interested in going over to Ireland, and one of the things I said is just going over there to hang out in downtown Dublin is not going to fly. What are your interests in both being an ambassador for Notre Dame as well as being an ambassador for the States? How would you bring parts of Ireland home with you? Aspects of that are in your application. In addition to aspects about science and engineering, what do you want to accomplish? Why is this important to you? Both from a perspective of what the Nauchtons are looking to do, which is help cement these relationships, as well as what's important to you in terms of the science and engineering you might want to accomplish. And there's a component about future plans, and while we all recognize that plans change and what you want to do now is probably going to be different than what you want to do 2 years ago, or what you want to do 2 years before, or 2 years from now, there is a section about future plans, and to the extent that your future plans still involve science and engineering, you should emphasize that, and that's going to be something that's looked at.
Thank you.
Anything else? We are really hoping to get a lot of good, strong applications for both programs. I can tell you, I was not involved in this selection, but my daughter went through this a year ago, 2 years ago. Anyway, she did a Naughton Fellowship in Dublin and absolutely loved it. She did a master's in global health from Trinity. Part of that was going over to spend 9 weeks in Africa doing field testing for malaria. And really was kind of transformative for her.
And I'll just say, everyone, I'm Joanne and I'm on the committee. I did my master's at Trinity after graduating from Notre Dame, and I wound up living in Ireland for 11 years before coming back to Notre Dame. So if anyone is interested and wants to know what it's like to live in Dublin or live in Ireland and work there, I'm happy to talk to you now, or my contact details are on the website as well.
And actually, I forget which university it was, Joanne. Who was here? Was it Cork? No, it was.
Galway.
Galway was here,
Yeah.
and they were talking about the research that undergraduates can do at Galway, and as part of the master's program. And there it was much more intensive, getting in a lab, doing some sort of things. Yes, it was a master's degree, but it was less of the coursework. Do a little bit of this, do a little bit of that. Check the boxes, and you have a master's degree. It was very research intensive. So again, it varies by which program and which university, what you might wind up doing. And that might influence what you apply to. If you really want to get in the lab and get your hands super wet and get a lot of science done, that's one thing. If you want a more structured master's program, that's another thing. And so one of the things that I should mention is for the master's program, there's a couple rounds of evaluation. If you make it through the first one, which is essentially looking at your application, we have a committee together, we look at your application, we look at your scholastic performance, we look at your letters of recommendation, we read your statement. Then there's an interview phase, and it's that interview phase where we ask you all the kinds of things that I just talked about. What do you want to do? Why do you want to do this? How do you be an ambassador? What do you see, getting out of this, those sorts of things. And it's at that point you want to have a pretty good sense of the program you're interested in. Why that program? What does it specifically speak to you about? Why do you want to do that? You won't have to have been admitted to it already, again, because the timing is, these things are separated. You apply early for the Naughton program, you'll apply later for the master's program. But if you don't know anything about the master's program, if you just, I want to go do bioengineering in Dublin, and you can't tell us anything about that bioengineering program in Dublin, about why that program is important to you, and what you might do with that, that's not going to sell. So again, it's just doing that homework ahead of time and convincing us, initially on paper, and then in an interview, that this is something you're excited about, it's something you really want, and you have lots of good reasons to do it, and you've thought about it. Anything else? So I know what I told you. I probably shouldn't have told you this. One of the things we're trying to do is drum up interest, increase the number of applications. It's probably in all of your best interest not to do that, so it can increase your chances. But please drum up the business. Tell everybody that this opportunity exists. One of the things that you were actually quite proud of is the program has been very successful, and the Nauchtons were very generous in establishing it. They are involved not in the administration of the program, but they're obviously very interested in it, and I think the Naughton family has been very happy with the program so far. So as it continues to do well, the opportunities to grow continue as well. Okay. Well, my email is out there somewhere. You can also send naughton.nd.edu. You can email Joanne. We're all on that webpage. And I'm sure you might have other questions that will come up, and don't hesitate to reach out. I know it probably doesn't sound like you gave a whole lot of specifics other than just, rah, 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 but hopefully you get a little bit of the idea of what the nuts and bolts are behind the scenes. If you do have other questions, don't hesitate to reach out. Okay, good luck, everybody.